StraighTAllDay.com.
Now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is, we are getting into a guide to masculine movement. And this one is not a metaphor. I actually mean this literally. This is literally referring to the way that you physically hold and move your body. And this is specifically directed at the men. And ladies, don't worry, because first of all, you should listen to this, because you can look for this in the men with which you deal. And also, you can pass this along to any men you know who you think may benefit from this. And also, I got something coming for the ladies too, so stay tuned. All right, so we're addressing the men here today, but I have something coming for the ladies on this that rhymes with this topic here today, just not today. So specifically, again, for men to communicate certain things non-verbally, both to yourself and to the world. And the better you are able to embody these traits, physically embody them, the more you will get off the unspoken signals that I will venture to guess. I'm just going to guess. Most men want to give off in your everyday interactions with others, both at work and at home. Let's get into it. You'll understand exactly what I mean as we get to this. Let me see what we're doing here. So okay, let's get into it. Point number one, topic once again is a guide to masculine movement. Number one, posture equals presence. Posture equals presence. This applies to females the same way it applies to males, but the frame around this entire episode here today is going to be for the males. Masculinity in movement begins with what we call grounded stillness. So any of you listen to or read or follow anybody in the biohacking community, it's a big thing in the biohacking community. You hear people talking about grounding, and grounding is about having your actual flesh touch actual earth every day, preferably early in the day. So any of you who lives in a place where you have easy access to the outdoor area, so if you're not like someone like myself, who for many years I've lived in condominium buildings and stuff like that, where you had to get in the elevator and go downstairs and get out of the big concrete building. Then you might have to walk across some streets to even get to some grass. If you live in a place where there's some grass right next to your kitchen door, you can go and ground yourself on the ground literally every day. Or maybe you're in a complex where you can get near that grass. The whole point of grounding is, biohackers will tell you that you want to have your physical body touch the earth every day. And the earth is not concrete. Concrete is a made up thing, but actual earth. So actual dirt, actual grass. And you may hear people use the phrase touch grass. People use that they use it kind of as sometimes people use it as somewhat of a joke, just to say to someone like, hey, you're not getting out the house enough. Maybe you're messing around on electronics and technology a little bit too much to where you've lost your touch with actual humanity. So they'll say, touch grass. So grounded stillness does not mean take your shoes off and your socks off and go stand in the dirt. Grounded stillness means you are rooted in place in a still way, not in a way that you are stiff, but in a way that you are still. Those are different things. And if you listen to, as I just said, you'll hear people talk about this grounding thing, but one way of being grounded is to literally stand your ground and hold your position in a steady and controlled way. So again, you're not stiff, but you're steady. And I talk about posture. In many episodes of this show, I've talked about posture. And I talk about internal posture, which is the way that you're thinking and the story you're telling yourself, and also external posture, which is literally the way you're holding your body, right? The way you sit and the way you stand. And head up, chest out, shoulders back, feet solidly on the floor. All these things for a man communicate both command and control and presence. So actually three things: command, control, and presence. When your head is up, your chest is out, your shoulders are back, and your feet are solidly on the floor. In other words, you're not fidgeting, you're not jumping around, you're not holding your spot. You're kind of standing, you're holding your position as far as where you're physically standing. If you have improper posture, such as your head is down, this happens to a lot of us now because we get used to having, or you may get the symptoms of what we call text neck. Text neck, all of you know what it is, even if you never heard of the phrase before. It's What happens when you are craning your head downward often because you're always looking down at your phone or any type of screen, such as a tablet or a computer. So your head is naturally leaning forward. And your head's pretty heavy, depending on the size of your brain. Some of us have bigger brains than others. Your head is pretty heavy, and when you're craning it forward, you're putting a lot of strain on your back, on your upper back, and on your neck, and also on your shoulders, because that heavy head that you have is now leaning forward, and also it messes with your balance and your center of gravity, because it's all coming from your sinuses, which is up in your head. So when your head is not up, or your chest is caved in because your shoulders are slumping forward. So any of you right now, just roll your shoulders forward. Like if you were trying to make your shoulders touch into each other from the inside, like in front of your body, and you rolled your shoulders forward, you see that your chest, it constricts, it gets smaller when you bring your shoulders together. When you push your shoulders back and you're kind of making your shoulder blades touch, what happens? Your chest naturally expands. So your chest gets wider when you push your shoulders back, and your chest gets smaller when you push your shoulders forward. And usually when our head is going forward, it's hard to keep our shoulders back because it's kind of like they're fighting against each other. So the rest of your body is going to follow where your head is going. So if your head is always tilted forward, what happens is your shoulders are going to slowly start to roll forward. Your chest is going to get smaller. It constricts. Your breathing becomes more shallow because it's hard to breathe deep when you can't get all the oxygen into your chest. And you're going to make yourself physically look smaller just because of the way that you're holding your body. So all of these things affect you. And if your feet are not solidly on the floor, you're kind of jittery, so to speak. These things all communicate a lack of dominance, a lack of personal control, a lack of presence. And all of these things unconsciously cause people to respect you less, but for no other reason than what they are unconsciously picking up about you in these nonverbal signals. Let's remember that most communication, everybody, is nonverbal. So the way that you are actually holding your body, whether someone just comes across you standing somewhere or even walking, these things all play a role in the way people are perceiving you, because remember, most communication is not what you say, it's what you do. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is a guide to masculine movement. Number 2, control equals power. What does this mean? I don't mean having control, such as being the boss of something or having access to pushing buttons. That's not what I mean when I say control. When we talk about masculine movement, again, in the literal sense, we're talking controlled movements. Your actual physical movement is done in a controlled way. So controlled movements means that you are not fidgety, is that you move with purpose, and you move only when you need to move, not because someone or something is forcing you to move, and not because you are just kind of, again, jittery and just unable to stay in one spot and hold a position simply because maybe you have some type of nervous energy, or you maybe are impatient, or for whatever reason, there's something on your mind that is leaking out of you through your physical behaviors. And that's a thing. Any of you study any type of physiology, or just people who study the mind-body connection, that if you have something going on in your mind that is troubling you or bothering you, or that you just haven't been quite able to address the way you want to address it, that energy of what's going on in your head will leak out of you through your physical behaviors. It will leak out of you through your actions. For example, have you ever been in your car driving, and there's a car behind you that apparently it looks like the driver of that car must be in a rush to get somewhere, and they're very anxious to get to where they're going. And the way that you know this is not because you can even see the driver or talk to the driver, but they are communicating their eagerness and anxiety to you by doing what? How would you know that? Any of you who's ever driven a car, you know how people communicate this to you when you're driving. They communicate it to you by tailgating you, driving really closely on your bumper, by dipping in and out of traffic, even though there may not be an opening for them to get anywhere, but they do it anyway. And they're communicating that by what? By the physical movements of the vehicle. They're showing you that they maybe are anxious or in a rush to get to where they want to go. And on some levels that could communicate control, and on some levels it cannot. Any of you ever been around a person, especially a male, who you could tell they had some nervous energy, even though you didn't even know them or know what they might be nervous about, but you could tell they had nervous energy? Well, how could you tell? You could tell because they may be doing things like tapping their hands. You know, that tapping someone does with their hands, or they're tapping their feet for whatever reason. Or if they're sitting sometimes men sit in a figure 4 position. That's when they take the ankle of one foot and put it over the knee of the other foot, and that leg just keeps shaking. Their leg is shaking. Or even if they're sitting with both feet on the floor, one of the legs is just moving all the time. Or a person that has something in their hands that they keep messing with. So maybe they have a pen. They keep clicking the pen open and clicking it closed. Or they have their AirPods case and they keep opening and closing it. Just some type of consistent physical movement that the person keeps doing. and is making some type of sound, or you're just physically, visibly noticing that movement, all of these are communicating a lack of control for some reason. You may not even know what it is, but you communicate a lack of control when you do that, because your movements are not steady, and it's communicating a lack of power in that moment when you're doing it. So control means, again, you're not fidgeting. Anytime a man is fidgeting, you are communicating a lack of self-control. You move with purpose. That's a good thing. You move with purpose. And when you move, you know exactly where you're going and you go straight to it. And you move only when you need to move, not because someone or something is forcing you to move, as I just said. So a good piece of advice that I would give to any man, especially those of you who are in the dating market. And as a matter of fact, you don't even have to be in the dating market. You just, as a man, period, this can work. And it works very well both with men and with women, but I'll use women as an example. As a man, you see a woman who you want to have some form of communication with, whomever she is, and for whatever reason, whether it's in business, whether it's a friendship thing, whether it's someone you're interested in dating and you want to ask them for a phone number or something like that. As soon as you see her and she sees you, if you make a controlled, purposeful movement to go straight to her, no, no diversions, no divergent paths, or no turning off the path, and you just go straight towards the target, that communicates a high level of power, a high level of discipline, a high level of confidence, and a high level of control. All of those things being communicated are transferring over to your target, the woman who you may be walking up to and approaching, and it elevates you in the eyes of that woman even before you say a single word, which probably will help you in the communication, whatever that communication may be. And again, for whatever reason you are having that communication. Deliberate, steady movements, again, steady posture, steady eye contact. Think about that. Just picture that as a man, you or any other man you want to picture your favorite movie star, celebrity man who you think all women love, if you don't want to picture yourself. Walking straight up to a woman he's interested in the movie. So think of James Bond, for example. James Bond, he sees a woman he likes across the room at a cocktail party. What does he do? Deliberate, steady movements, steady posture, steady eye contact. There is no nervousness. There's no jumpiness. There's no eccentricity in his behavior. So I'll give you another example. Remember, I was playing pickup basketball at LA Fitness in Tampa Bay, Florida around 2008. And there was some random guy that was in there playing one day. I was just playing pickup. And I don't know for sure, but I would guess, because somebody else who was playing with us suggested it. I didn't know. I don't have the radar for this, but someone else suggested it. They said this guy must have been high on some type of controlled substance. Like, he was playing basketball with us, but it seemed like he was high. And one of the reasons you could tell he was high because his eyes were super wide open. The only other time I ever seen someone with eyes that wide open and they just kind of almost stayed open all the time was my first professional playing experience when I was in Lithuania in 2005. And we were at a club where all these girls were high on ecstasy. And their eyes just seemed wide open. It's almost like they didn't blink for like 3 or 4 hours straight, at least as far as I could tell. And he was high on something. I don't know what he was high on. This guy was probably high because I remember I did a move on this guy and his reaction was even more so than a normal basketball player. I mean, the move I did was a nice move, so it faked him out. But the way that he went for the fake was so extra. It was like, this guy has to be high. His movements are a little bit too extra of what he's doing. And again, I think this guy might have been a crackhead, a high on crack at the moment, but I don't know. I'm no expert in illicit street drugs. I have no idea what the hell he was on. He was on something, on top of the fact that he probably wasn't that good at basketball, even if he was sober. Continuing. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is a guide to masculine movement. Number 3. Stillness equals dominance. So you see how all these 3 pieces connect. So the second one is about steady and controlled movements, and you're moving steadily and in control when you have a purpose and a reason to move. But if you have no purpose or reason to move, then you are still, because you're not wasting energy. You're not allowing the energy to leak out of you. So this is what I meant earlier when I said, if someone is nervous, any of you ever been in a situation where you were nervous or anxious or scared or concerned about something, and that energy was stirring inside of you, but there wasn't really anything physically you saw yourself as able to do in the moment, that energy is still leaking out of you in some way. So you may be jittery. You may keep shifting your weight from one foot to another. You may start pacing. You may be messing with your keys or messing with an ink pen or just something to let that energy leak, because that energy is leaking out of you. That's what that means when you're doing those type of things. Stillness, on the other hand, is a reflection of dominance. And the key is not just being still when everything's going good, because we all have times like that when everything's going good and we can be still and we can relax. But also, what about when things are not going so great for you? Can you still remain still? In a room full of people, for example, the most still, most quiet, and the person who least needs to do or say anything is the person who's in charge, usually. So if you ever walk into a room full of people and you want to know who's the person in charge that you don't know, look for the person who is moving the least, the person who seems to be, through their behavior, jittering the least, the person who is saying the least. And that person, usually just based on their stillness alone, draws the attention of everyone else, because everybody else is moving about and trying to get someone's attention, maybe saying things, maybe again they have unsteadiness in their movements, but the person who's not moving at all gets all the attention just by the law of contrast. Sometimes you may hear people talk about the concept of the lion in the room. Well, what does it mean? Every one of you has been to the zoo, or most of you have. And if you haven't, you've been on the internet. You've seen a lion sitting in, let's say, somewhere in some form of captivity. Whether that lion was working in the circus, or this lion was in the zoo. A lion doesn't have to do a whole bunch of movements or roar really loudly or do anything to get your attention if the lion is in your presence. Because if there's a lion in your presence, every one of you notices the lion. Now, any of you ever been around a lion and you did not notice the lion? Any of you who's ever been in that situation, that means you must live in the jungles in Africa somewhere, and a lion was in your presence and you didn't see it. You probably wouldn't be hearing me right now, because the lion killed you and had you for breakfast. So all of you know exactly all of you can imagine what I mean here when I talk about the stillness equaling dominance. And when you hear people talk about the lion in the room, the point is this: that a lion, if it's in a room, doesn't matter what other animals are in that room, the lion doesn't have to do anything. The lion doesn't have to roar. The lion doesn't have to announce itself. The lion doesn't need a bell around his neck. The lion doesn't need to jump up and down. All the lion has to do is just be there. Everybody notices the lion. And the lion can just sit there doing absolutely nothing. Everybody notices the lion. And why is this? Is it because we all have done deep research on a lion's capabilities and know how strong the power of its jaws are and that it will kill and eat flesh? No, we don't have to know any of those things. If you put a lion in a room with a 2-year-old child, the child notices the lion. And the 2-year-old child does not have the brain development to understand anything about a lion on a logical level that they can explain. Why do they notice? Because, again, most communication is nonverbal, ladies and gentlemen. The stillness of the lion communicates its dominance without it doing anything. Now, compare the lion to, for example, a little bunny rabbit in the same room. If a little bunny rabbit or a mouse is in the same room, how does the bunny rabbit or the mouse communicate its energy? The bunny rabbit or mouse is very jittery. It has very quick reflexes. It's looking all around everywhere and kind of noticing everything all at the same time. It's noticing as many things as it possibly can. Why? Because everything around the little bunny rabbit or the little mouse is a possible threat to the bunny rabbit or the mouse. Whereas if you think of the lion may look around the room, but what does a lion look for? A lion isn't looking for anything that could be a threat to it. Not to say the lion couldn't be defeated by something. I mean, humans kill lions. An elephant could probably stomp out a lion, or a hippopotamus, but a lion isn't looking around at everything else in a room wondering what could possibly hurt me. The lion is looking around thinking, what could I possibly hurt? Not what could hurt me. Whereas the rabbit or the mouse is thinking about what could bother me. So you should ask yourself, even though you're not a rabbit, a lion, or a mouse, and you don't live in a zoo, what kind of energy are you communicating with just the way you carry yourself, the way you sit, stand, walk on a daily basis? Because you are communicating something. Are you communicating dominance, or are you communicating subservience? When it comes to masculine movements, again, the person who is doing the most talking or the most movement is usually subordinate to somebody else in that space. The person who is doing the least amount, the person who is the most still, who is standing their ground, holding their position, and moving only when they need or want to, that person is usually the person in control. Again, you don't have to know who they are. And they may not even have an actual title that puts them in control or above anybody, but just the way they carry themselves, they're communicating that that's who they are, even if they don't have a business card to prove it. Not jittery, not unsteady. So give you some more examples. If you ever see video of the president, I don't think I've ever in person have seen a sitting United States president. Actually, I don't think I've ever seen any president, whether current or former president, in person. But any of you who has, or you just look at video of the president but a president just when they're out and about doing things, President always has these group of guys around him in suits, and they are known as the Secret Service. We're all familiar with who they are. They all are the men in black, so to speak, in these black suits, and they usually have on shades so you can't see what they're looking at, and they have earpieces in their ears so they can communicate with each other, and the Secret Service is always around the president. I remember as a child, I would see video of President at the time, Bill Clinton. Every day he would go out and he would like to run. And Bill Clinton would take a jog every morning, and the Secret Service has to go with him. So the Secret Service people had to jog with him every single morning when he was out running, and they would always be there surrounding him anytime he was running. And you notice the thing about the Secret Service, when they're around the president, they move in a controlled and steady way. You never see a nervous or jittery looking Secret Service person. There's no such thing. And when they are in position, whatever position they're in, they stand in that one spot and they don't move. And if you walk around them, they are noticing you and seeing you, but because they got the black shades on, you can't tell that they're looking at you, but they probably are looking right at you. And they keep the shades on their eyes so you don't know that they're watching you even when they're watching you. And even when they're not moving, notice everybody notices them. If the Secret Service was in your presence, if you were somewhere where the president was, you would notice the Secret Service people, even though they're not doing anything. And for the most part, they don't talk. And they all in the same uniform. How do you notice them all? They should blend in, right? But no, they don't blend in, and they don't blend in for a reason. It's the same with military when they're military actively on a job, or a security team, a very disciplined security team. It's the same thing. You can see and feel them even when they're doing absolutely nothing, just like the lion. Again, the stillness is the power. So, as I said, I've never been into a in-person meeting with a president or a king or any type of head of state, but I would bet that when they have their gatherings, that person, that head of state, the king, the prime minister, the president, whoever they are, they probably speak the least of everybody in the meeting, and they usually speak after everybody else spoke. And by that measure alone, you know they're the person in charge, even if you didn't know anything else. This is one of the ways that you know. So let's recap today's class, which is a guide to masculine movement. Again, this is not a metaphor. This is literal movement for the masculine man. Number one, posture equals presence. Masculinity and movement begins with grounded stillness. You are holding your place. You are holding your position. You are not stiff, but you are steady and stationary until or unless you want to move, which leads to point number two. Control equals power. By this, I don't mean having control, like pushing a button. We're talking about masculine movement, and that means you're never fidgety. You always move with a purpose. You only move when you need to move or want to move, not because you are being forced to move. Masculine energy is not forced into anything by anyone. You choose when to move. And that controlled movement pattern is reflected in deliberate, steady movements, steady posture, and steady eye contact. Again, use this next time you're having communication with another person, especially a first impression. This is going to change the way that they see you just by your movement patterns. Number three, stillness equals dominance. In a room full of people, the most still, most quiet, and least needy person, needy to do something, needy to say something, needy to move, that's usually the person in charge. And they communicate that without saying a single word. Again, picture a lion in a room full of other animals. The lion doesn't have to move at all. It can lay down on the floor and be damn near asleep. No one ignores the presence of that lion. Why? Because the lion has a certain energy that is communicating exactly who it is without it doing anything. The same way that a mouse or a rabbit is also communicating what it is without doing anything. Now ask yourself, how are you communicating your energy when you move about your life and about your world? That said, workonyourgameuniversity.com. We have just opened up The Circle, which is my group coaching program, which any of you can get in. This is for those of you who want to get some clarity, you want to get some guidance, you want to get the accountability, but you may not be ready for a full-scale program now. You can get in at the group level. It's $97. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. You'll see all the information you need to get started right there. Work on your game. Dre all